Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 1.5 of Tenarium Tryinmorning Talk VNs. I'm Tryinmorning.
And I'm Tenarium.
And last time we did this on Chris's channel, we had talked a bit about a few different visual novels. We discussed some of them, and, well, there's a bit of a theme last episode, if you couldn't tell, of games that weren't so good. But this week, we decided to do something a bit new and add something that might be a bit more interesting for you folks. So, in this episode, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about some VN news and some things that have developed over the last few weeks. One of them being VNsNow's top, Visual Novels Awards? Or it's different categories, not just the top VNs. We have different categories like...
It's the 2014 best-ofs.
Yeah, there you go. So we got Visual Novel of the Year, Studio of the Year, that kind of thing, which I know Tenarium wanted to talk about, so... we'll let him get to that.
I must admit, it's the first time I've sort of ever read through JP's list and not wanted to bash him over the head for it. Unfortunately for him, I hadn't played Taaradhin yet when I originally read through this list, and then I did play Taaradhin, and now I do want to bash him over the head. The English Visual Novel of the Year of 2014, and I've spoken about this at great length beforehand, that 2014 was not a good year for English visual novels.
I think anyone watching your channel would know that.
Yeah, exactly. Taaradhin got the best one of 2014. Now, we're going to talk about this game after we do the news, but I think it's basically safe to say that you and I, Patrick, we don't agree necessarily with this decision.
That would be correct. No, we don't really have the same viewpoint that he did.
Yeah, we saw it violently different, but let's just go on. We've got 25 categories to go through. This is going to be a long slog. This is probably also not going to be a feature every episode, because visual novel news, you fucking try and find some visual novel news, there's none of it. It just so happened that this week there was some. So he said Studio EVN Circle of the Year is Apple Cider Games. Now they made they made their debut with Autumn's Journey, which I imagine some people picked up that game and fucking loved it. They were like, you know what, Tenarium, this is fucking brilliant, this game. I love it. I played it and it was so sweet. It was so sweet. Everyone was really nice for no good reason. I tried to act like an arsehole throughout the whole game of Autumn's Journey. But unfortunately, you do have to cuddle up with two dragons regardless of what choices you choose. And it annoyed me. Like, the contenders for this as well. I mean, there was like Love in Space. And I thought it was a toss-up between Winter... I didn't even think it was a toss-up, if I'm perfectly honest. I just thought it had to be Winter Wolves. They're the only company who released 2 games last year. And they also made my favourite game last year, which is Roommates, because it was the best visual novel made last year. What would you say the best visual novel made last year was?
Well, I have to admit, I don't have a lot of experience with doing some of the newer VNs. We kind of just did a spread of different visual novels that have been released over time. But I have to agree that the ones that I saw were a bit better than Taaradhin, without trying to get too much into that right now.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just move on. We can rant about that later. Rookie of the Year, Sonnet 009. Yes, developers apparently include numbers in their name now. For Aloners. This is, ironically, another game we're going to be speaking about later. Now, Rookie of the Year. They had to compete with Nom Nom Nami. It's not a brilliant name, is it? With Romance Detective, which is a better game, as far as I'm concerned. Romance Detective. It was a comedy game, and it worked because I laughed at it. But, moving on. Best character, Cecily and Basiliska. Did you ever get round to playing Basiliska?
No, I did not. I didn't get around to playing many of these.
Yeah, I didn't get around to playing this because it's a kinetic novel. I cannot bring myself to play kinetic novels. I think it's defeating the point of visual novels. I play it because there's story and there's choice and I can choose stuff. And kinetic novels, take your choice and go, nah, we'll just tell you the story if that's all the same. No, it's not the same. And then, Best Director, Sam Yang, Sunrider. I loved Sunrider for the first 30 minutes. And you remember last time I was saying about Seduce Me?
Yeah, this is something that we had last week.
Yeah, and how the tone sort of just violently changed. Yeah, that's what Sunrider did. So I don't see how they can win Best Director considering how all over the place it was. And yeah, then there's Best Artist, Orocyanide Taaradhin. I think that's a little bit insulting to Deji, who's in Apple Cider Games with Kitty Cat. But I'm just going to skip ahead a few awards here. Deji did get Most Improved Artist. Now, as far as I'm aware, improved means you have to get better at something, right?
Yeah, it's almost like a backhanded compliment, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing is, her art was already really fucking good. Like, if you wanted to give her an award, that could just be tied. She hasn't improved, she's always been really good. She may have made some subtle sort of adjustments, which I wouldn't have noticed. But she was really good beforehand anyway. She's better, goddamn you. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Best Writer, Lorelei Taaradhin. Again, we disagree with this one, don't we?
Yeah, just a little bit, or maybe more.
Oh, God, we're going to have to explain all of this. We better make our point really good.
Yeah, we're going to get to that eventually.
Yeah. Best Programmer, again, Sunrider. So, if I go to the Best Programmer nominees, if I can blasting find it. Apparently I can't find it now. Ah, here we are. It's just lower down on the actual things. So, bar Saving Zoe, which I'm told programming kind of was a thing in, and Icebound, but the programming was literally just a sort of very tedious minigame. It was one of those, you know, you sit down, quickly, she's about to die, we need to get your kit out, and you need to do this really quickly, and then you spend like the next 15 minutes just trial and erroring. It wasn't that. So, you know, like, probably well-deserved, just not much competition. Best Editor, Saving Zoe. Did you play it?
No, I did not play that.
Nope, neither did I. Now, you are to chuckle at my mark. Are you ready, Patrick?
I'm ready.
The best male voice actor and the best female voice actor go to the people who did Pizza More. Mark. Good voice actors in visual novels. We can all dream, can't we?
One day.
Yeah, that's the one. Best Original Song. Season of the Wolf by Matthew Meyer and Busara. No, it's not. Look, again, my bias will start to come here, but Roommates, again, the theme tune to that I thought was better. Don't get me wrong, Season of the Wolf, very fucking good song. I've heard it. But the one from Roommates was better, because it fitted it more. I also had some alternative lyrics I ended up singing, but I shan't do that. Best Original Score. Icebound. I mean, original score? Isn't that just an original visual novel, a new IP? Isn't it?
I don't know. A lot of the visual novels that I was recently playing with this, which is probably because they're free, they used public domain sounds, I guess, or music that are free to use. So I guess.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, when it comes to these big visual novels they've been around, I mean, best original score, they're all original, as far as I'm aware. I thought Icebound was quite good by the last hour, where it tailed off somewhat. Best romance English visual novel, Roommates. That's something I can agree on. Now, in visual novels, this is very rare. I'm about to blow your mind, but in this game, you can actually get to the point where you're dating the person, and the game doesn't end. It goes on.
You mean life doesn't end once you get a girlfriend? This is ridiculous.
Apparently not. We should have really guessed this, considering we both have girlfriends.
Yeah.
And we're still alive. We should have had an inkling. But you actually get to then have a relationship. It's incredible. I don't know. Best hybrid English visual novel, Sunrider. Again, can you name any competition to that at all?
Not me.
Visual novel Tycoon by, doesn't say, Unhack by Invert Mouse. Invert Mouse did Without Within, so it's probably crap.
Oh.
And then Tales of Aravorn, which wasn't really a visual novel. It was an RPG. So, yeah. Best comedy EVN, Romance Detective. That's a good one. Nice. That's a good one. If you haven't played it yet, you should. Best drama EVN, The One in Love. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is. And best fan game EVN, Regeria Hope, which we covered last time and said it was quite bad.
Yeah. You know, the thing I was thinking of once I read that was how many other fan game EVNs were there? None that I know of.
Well, Patrick, let me tell you, there was Being Butacious by, oh god, this guy. I follow him on Twitter, but he's got a German name. And it's got 2 little dots over the A's, and I don't know how to pronounce that because I'm not German. Let's just go with the German one, but actually they're all French. Lloyd Irving, Dating Sim Lubrian, and Silence. Doesn't say who it's by.
That just rolls off the tongue.
That is a very intuitive name, isn't it? Just Lloyd Irving, Dating Sim Lubrian, and Silence. I mean, you imagine that wasn't an elevator pitch, was you? The Cask of Omintilado. I don't know what that is. In Miko We Trust.
Well, I'm assuming that other one was based off of the Edgar Allan Poe story. At least that's what I think.
You are speaking to someone with so little interest in literature. You have no idea. You really don't. In Miko We Trust by, again, doesn't say, Quiz RPG Tent Shy Christmas 2014.
Ah, there you go, another one.
Again, another one which rolls off the tongue. And Ragnarok Believe. Now, I haven't heard of any of them.
No.
Bar Regeria Hope.
And that's only because we just tried that last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Yeah. I even know the first one, and I don't even know what that visual novel is. I really should, but I don't. I should play some of their games at some point. And then, Most Improved Writer, Uncle Mugen. Now, do you know who Uncle Mugen is?
Somebody's uncle, I'm supposing.
No, he's someone who... Wow, he predates a lot of people in the visual novel scene. Mm-hmm. I really mean, he precedes so many people. In fact, I was pretty much under the impression that it was impossible to be in the visual novel scene and not heard of Uncle Mugen. But apparently you did.
Well, I'm very loosely connected. I don't really have a lot of experience with this stuff, so don't mind my opinions or lack of knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's deserved, I guess. But I mean,
again,
he's always
it's one
been
of those backhanded compliments, isn't it?
Yeah, he's always been a half-decent writer. The thing is, what he's most well-known for is he goes to Lemasoft and gives everyone free backgrounds to use.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's just what Uncle Mugen does. He posts something, and at the end, he just goes, disappears.
You know what? I think I actually saw that name in, what was it, Frequency. So, yeah, I guess I have heard of him, kind of. I think it was actually in the game itself. They had something about Uncle Mugen, now that I think about it.
Did he write Frequency?
No, I don't think he wrote it, but I think some of the art might have been from him, because there was something that's like Uncle Mugen's like shop or something. So, he's in the background.
and the art was one of the things we didn't mind about that game either. But no, he's an alright chap. He is okay. He follows me on Twitter, so he must have like common sense and good taste.
Of course.
And then the last nominee is Most Improved Artist. They gave to Deji for Autumn's Journey, which I thought was so ineptly harsh. Like, no, she's the best artist. But I mean, you see what I mean? Like, I agree with most of these, but only because there's just no competition. Like, there is physically no competition for it. And the ones which there were competition for, I disagreed, but that's the point of having opinions. How many did you agree with yourself, Patrick?
Well, again, with a lack of knowledge of many of the different games that came out and not having sampled as many as you have, I'd say it's probably easier to say which ones I disagree with than agree with.
So just anything with Taaradhin in it?
Pretty much, yeah. We'll get to that in just a bit.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. Alright, well, yeah, swiftly moving on. More news. MangaGamer did a survey about licensing, which, I mean, is pretty big news. The problem is I don't know if anyone's ever been to the MangaGamer website, but you do need to be over 18 to get into it. So you should already know what kind of site it is if you didn't beforehand. So when they said it's no surprise that anyone in the primary market for visual novels is men in the college age range, 73 respondents were male. I'm like, well, I only do visual novels on my channel. I have done for the last year or so, right? Probably year and a half now. I get, I think, nearing 70% female viewers. What's yours, Patrick?
Yeah, we were both talking about this.
Similar.
We had, I had 75% females, and I think most of them were between the ages of 18 and 24, something like that.
Oh, you lucky bastard. Mine are younger than that.
Ah.
Oh, no. I get the 13 to 17 demographic, I do.
Well, I had quite a few of those as well.
Yeah, you also have to remember that a lot of people don't want to admit they're 13 to 17. They want to say they're 18 so they can watch all the bad stuff on YouTube as well. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people who are 18 to 24, chances are actually much younger. My YouTube account, I must be 30 by now. And I'm not. I'm 21. So, but yeah, they did this, and then they went on to essentially just state the bleeding obvious. Older people actually like hard copies, where the younger generation prefer digital downloads.
Yeah, nothing really talked about there.
Yeah, the majority of respondents prefer to game on Windows PC. Yes, that's because it's better. And then the ultimate and the sun rose this morning moment was when surveyed about what respondents considered most important when deciding to purchase a visual novel, story and art were significantly the two most important factors.
There's still hope. People still value story and art, so that's a good thing.
Yes. Unfortunately, Patrick also taught me about a Japanese word. I don't look into Japanese words.
Well, I didn't teach you. I had to Google it myself, just because I was curious. I actually asked you first, and you didn't know, so I'm like, let me just look this up on Google, and then I regretted it.
Yeah, I'm blissfully ignorant when it comes to these things, because I just prefer not to know. And it also says, next paragraph, it was no surprise that women greatly preferred the otome and BL genres. I don't know what BL is. While men more strongly preferred, how did you pronounce this word?
I don't know if I got it right. Nukiji? I don't know. Basically, it means it's a game which has the intended effect to help the player masturbate. That's from Urban Dictionary, anyway.
So, yeah, apparently lots of people like that. But, I mean, it could have been a decent survey, but, I mean, a lot of the data is flawed. Saying more men are interested in visual novels than women, again, it depends what kind. You can't just drop a blanket over it all and then go, right, Kate, done. I mean, I am on this now. Okay, I'm on the website now, I'm looking at it, and they've got tags to the right? The tags that they've most used, or the most recently used ones. This is the kind of website it is, and this is why it's not surprising that more guys do it. And yes, girls do this as well, but let's face it, it's more guys. The top 3 tags are 7th expansion anime, Expo Appetite Boob Wars, Boob Wars 2, Bukake Ranch. I love how they get... The first one there is an appetite for it. I must admit, I'm in the mood for it. And then the second one, they're just like, no, outright, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. You can't get rid of it. It's over your face. It's everywhere.
Mm.
But that's the kind of website this is. So a lot of the stuff they say is, it's stuff you already knew. Basically. And they don't really provide much data beyond male and female. Beyond that, they don't do any percentages. And for the last bit of vaguely important news, and we are scraping the barrel at this point, Sakura Fantasy has come out. That's right. 2 and a bit months ago, they released Sakura Angels all of a sudden. Their publisher was surprised when it came out.
Hey, Chris, talk about scraping the barrel here, right?
Sakura Fantasy has come along 2 months and a bit later. It's I imagine, probably one of the spiritual sequel, whatever you call it, to Sakura Spirit and Sakura Angel. Sakura Spirit's a game I gave a lot of shit to for being no story and all boobs. Sakura Angel became even worse, and now it's Sakura Fantasy. And as JP brought up on Twitter from VNsNow.com, he said that it's rather disgusting that WingCloud has sort of rushed this out, but they've still got that Kickstarter game, The Last Guardian, which they haven't really bothered doing anything with. That's still just in the air at the moment. But this is fine. But yeah, this is my chance to stay on someone else's channel. I implore you, please, 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 please don't buy the game. Please. Please. The writer from this is even from the same city as I am. Brighton, in England. Like, he's actually from the same city. And I'd just like to apologise on behalf of him. From my city. So, Patrick, we should get you more involved. This is your channel. We should move on to Taaradhin.
All right, now that we're done with the news, we're actually going to cover the games, and Taaradhin is going to be our first one to cover, since we've been teasing you all along, based on the news about it. Mm-hmm. So, let's go to VNDB, shall we, and read the description for Taaradhin. A 7-year drought plagues the entire region surrounding the county of Nishtif, leading people to wonder if their goddess Shekn? I have no idea how to pronounce the word.
I'm going to assume
their goddess has abandoned
Schnecht.
them. Either way, the goddess has abandoned them. In contrast, young noblewoman Nektia has lived a comfortable life insulated from hardship and suffering. One of the poor surrounding countries, Jedi, sends their usual tribute of natural resources and livestock to Nishtif in exchange for the larger country's aid and protection. Rumors that the 2 attractive slaves are among the cargo intrigue Nektia. What lies in store for her after the slaves are brought to live at her family estate? Well, quite the summary. So, with Taaradhin, we have a game that, as a description says, is basically about a young princess of a powerful country. The region that they're living in is experiencing some kind of drought, which is causing economic depression. And the country that they're living in is kind of faring a bit better because their country's near the ocean and fishing's a big industry, which I guess relieves some of the pressure from the drought. And their neighboring country, I guess they get hit harder because of the drought. They're not, I guess they're more landlocked, but I think there's some kind of rivers or something, so there is fishing involved. But to a lesser extent.
They were also sort of poorer before it even began.
Yeah, that was the thing too. It's a smaller country, I guess. So the slaves that we're talking about, they turn out to be a beautiful man and a beautiful woman. And during the course of the game, you have the chance of getting to know either of them, and you get to choose which one you want to hang out with, and that kind of determines which one you get on the path of. So I think there's actually like only 2 choices or so that you get in the game. Am I correct there?
2 choices, because you have to go through all of the routes in order to unlock the true ending.
Mm-hmm, that's right. So you get 2 choices. Basically, you have to hang out with the same person each time. Otherwise, you get a badder ending, I guess you could say.
A worse ending, yeah.
A worse ending in comparison to the other endings, which still aren't so preferable unless you get to the true ending, which we'll get to in a bit. So on the ending paths of one of them, like let's say you're going to go with the man, which I can't remember his name of. So that's
Gyric.
Gyric. Okay, good. So Chris has his notes. So if you are in Gyric's...
I don't have notes. I can't remember what the woman's called.
Oh, okay, well...
it was just fluke that I got that.
Was
Christ,
good...
you're the one who does research.
I do mild research, not a lot. I just wrote down a few things. So if you're on Gyric's path, you later find out that the slaves were meant to be sacrificed, and since you're on Gyric's path and you're getting to know him better, and it happens very quickly, you develop a relationship with him, and then you end up getting your father to agree that he shouldn't be a slave anymore and that you want to marry him. Well, that happens, and he's spared from being sacrificed, but the girl is sacrificed. And vice versa if you're on the girl's path.
Can I just hasten to add into this?
Please, go ahead.
whilst you're on their path, it's very short.
It happens
it's
very, very quickly.
short.
Yeah.
It's, 20, 25 minutes per path?
I would say less.
Yeah, probably even less than that. Like, you have to remember I tab out and, like, walk off all the time, right? But it happens very quickly. There's no sort of progression to you going from, oh, they look quite cute, to, oh, fuck me, I love them. There is a huge feeling growing and bubbling up inside of me. There's nothing like that. There's even a point where they use that fucking writing sin of going, I don't know why, but I just felt that I love them so much. No, that's not how you write. I don't feel myself any closer to these characters than I did before you said that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to be... You can't just go, oh yeah, well the character feels it.
Yeah, that's a big problem I had with the game as well. It just happens so quickly. Like I said, you get two choices to hang out with them. So she literally hangs out with them 2 times from what you see. And all of a sudden they're all just, head over heels in love with them. And it's just kind of strange. You don't get to know them as a character.
3 times, you speak for an evening, a morning, a whole day, and the 4th time, you say you love them. I think that's how it works.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then... Yeah, go on.
All right, so you do all this, and you get 2 endings, either with the male or with the female. And then there are 2 more endings, which, I don't know, they just seem kind of thrown in there, where they both die. And I have to say the endings seem kind of the same, but I guess in one ending you're more emotionally attached to them than you are in the other. Like, I don't know, did you notice that with those 2 other endings, that they were kind of the same, really?
Yeah, they were the same. They were just bad ends, essentially. The thing is, once you get the first 2 endings as well, the good endings, where they sacrifice one of the slaves for... This is to... Did you say it was to end the drought? The drought?
Yeah, they did this. Yeah, I think I might skip this part. Yeah. So there was a drought, and they wanted to sacrifice the slaves to the goddess, whatever they called her. I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce that again, in order to appease the god and hopefully bring an end to the drought. So that was the motivation for sacrificing them, which I think I might have skipped amongst the whole description I was giving there.
Yeah, they generally, I don't think they say much about it, but once you fall in love with the other one, they go off with you and get married, and eventually your father agrees, and I think he's like a counsellor, so you've always been raised very highly. And when you, I think you mention it to one of them, say like several weeks later, it just skips several weeks later, and they say, oh yes, it's barely in my mind, they say with like, a frozen face as soon as you bring it up.
Yeah.
Shocked and, slightly taken aback and scared that you've mentioned it.
And let me just add, there's also almost no conflict at all with the slaves being freed just like that. Like, you just go to your father and it's done. It's not like that there's any development there with like, oh, you have to argue with your father. No, it just happens. Like, it's a really simple thing.
Yeah, it just happens. There's no a deliberation around it at all. Another thing is, once you get the bad endings, they both die because you haven't fallen in love with either of them. And then once you get all 4 endings, the true ending is unlocked.
Oh yeah. Alright, so let's cover the true ending of the game. So the true ending of the game is, well, if you've played the other endings, which you've had to, it's going to be pretty much familiar to you for the most part. Basically, you get to know the slaves again, but this time... Well, actually, I think I should go back and note that in the beginning of the game, you're basically hanging out in a garden, and that's where you hear the rumors about the slaves coming. And in the original choices that you have, well, you don't even have a choice. You just have to go see the slaves. But in the other version, I think you get a chance to go back to your room or something, and then when you're going back to your room, you overhear that there's supposed to be sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
And because you know that there's sacrifices in advance, it kind of changes the way things go about, because during the dinner where they're being introduced, you say to them, oh, how do you feel about being sacrifices? And they're like, what? Wait, what? What are you talking about? So they're stunned to hear that, because obviously they're not expecting their sacrifices. And basically you get to talk with them a bit more about things and their personal lives and their stories about what they did. Like, you get to find out that the man used to be from a family that were fishermen, but then due to the drought, they had to basically just fish and sell off all their fish. They started becoming poor, and I guess there was famine in the country, so they weren't able to eat all the time. So I guess when the people came to gather them up to be slaves, they just kind of were like, yeah, we'll take care of your family if you come with us. So that's his motivation for why he ended up being a slave. The girl, I think she was a prostitute. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. The girl was a courtesan. Something that the game at some points appears to be like propaganda for atheism. Like this, religion and God just are fucking evil, right? The priests go around and they say, oh yeah, well, we'll look after if you come along, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But they also go, oh, well, but if you run away, we will, kill you and your family. And the priests deliberately hide that they're sacrifices. He just says, oh, no, you should come to the slaves and be the palace, blah-de-blah-de-blah. I mean, at times, it is just propaganda for atheism at times, which is fine. I'm not going to say which side I am on, because, Christ, this is the internet, but it does seem like that through a lot of it. There was also something else I was going to mention that we forgot to mention through the beginning. That was it. That during the first couple of lines, when you're originally told, oh, yes, well, these are the slaves, and so on, is going to get sacrificed. You don't understand why they're upset about that, because you're seeing it as just like, oh, well, it should be an honor to be sacrificed. I don't see why you would be so angry about it.
Yeah, the protagonist she's a princess, so obviously she's well off, and she's rather aloof. She doesn't know about all the sufferings of the lower classes. I think there's one point where she says something about oh, the lower classes don't appreciate what the rich do for them and how much we take care of them and all that.
We give them jobs, and I was just like, wow, I can hear Donald Trump speaking. Christ. But yeah, so I had to mention for my little conclusion I'm going to do, so go on.
All right, so if we're going to do a little bit of a conclusion on this, there's a few things I want to talk about.
We haven't got through the true ending yet.
Oh, you want to continue with the true ending? Yeah, that's right. We only got halfway through, and then Okay, so the true ending, where were we? We were saying that we were getting to know them. So basically, it's kind of almost the same thing.
You overhear the priest. That's where you're at.
So only there's less romance in this version. After you overhear the priest, you tell them that there's supposed to be sacrifices. They get upset at first, and then later on, I think the next day, you apologize to them about breaking the news to them so harshly. And it kind of goes on from a bit there, which I want to say it's not really that interesting. You just talk to them for a few days, and you get to know them better. You hear their backstory about the guy, like I said, he was a fisherman or whatever. And the girl, she was a courtesan. She was working to support, I don't know if she had a family anymore at that point, but she was supporting herself, I guess, anyway. So
she considered her newfound friends at the courtesan place
right, that's what it was.
Her family.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, so then that's why she ended up becoming a slave, because she wanted to, I guess, support her newfound family. So that's why they came as slaves, and I think it was also because they were beauty, which was some kind of thing involved too, which I'm going to get to in a bit. And yeah, so you just get to know them, and then when the time comes that they're sacrificed, your character's just like, don't sacrifice them, kill me. And they're like, can we do that?
Because you've supposedly grown closer to them. You do have to remember, though, that when the paths restart, she's just the same girl she was before. It's just somehow one conversation with people has changed her philosophy about life.
Yeah, games like to do this sometimes. These VNs.
Yeah, it's all very odd towards the end, but go on. I'll rant about it after you.
All right, so you tell the priests that you want to be sacrificed in their stead, and they have a little bit of a debate about this. They take a few days off to read their holy scriptures and see if there's any kind of precedent for this. So after a few days, they are like, oh, well, that's fine. Apparently a noble's life counts for 2 commoners, or whatever they say. Mm-hmm. So then you're allowed to take their place on the sacrificial altar or whatever, which the sacrifice, I think it involves drinking some kind of a poison. And so you're about to drink the poison, and then suddenly it starts raining. And everyone celebrates, and they say, well, you don't need to be sacrificed anymore, you're good. And happy ending for all. And that's pretty much it.
You grow as a person, and you learn the value of life, and all that wank.
Mm-hmm.
Now, go on. I genuinely want to know what you think about it before I talk about it.
All right, so the first thing that I wanted to mention, which is kind of a nitpicky thing maybe, but I thought it was really funny how the whole reason why you connect with the slaves in the first place is basically because of how beautiful they are. Like, the game mentions several times, oh, the slaves are so beautiful, and I just wonder, if these were just two ugly people, would our protagonist have ever cared enough to gotten to know them? Because part of me thinks no, she wouldn't, and that's kind of a weird point of the story. Now, did you notice that?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's very shallow reasons, but obviously God made it rain at the end.
And that whole God part. Oh, okay.
But what I couldn't help thinking that at the end, look, she's done this whole thing. She's not supposed to be likable in the first 4 times you play as her, right? She's not supposed to be likable. That's her thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the end one, she suddenly learns the error of her ways and does the most martyr-like thing I have ever seen anyone do. It's just like, oh, well, yeah, I kind of see what you mean. You don't really want to be sacrificed because that's kind of grim. What do we do? Fine, you can kill me instead. Excuse me? You want to fucking what? You want to kill you instead? That is literally the biggest... I cannot stress this enough, but it's the biggest martyr thing I've ever seen anyone do. Like, oh, fine, just get me instead. And the game goes on like this. It's just like, I don't feel sorry for this person because they've taken a drastic overreaction after realising the error of their ways. This person isn't ever going to be like, well, I couldn't give a fuck if they died. And obviously, you know, she gets to the point where she's very nearly sacrificed and about to drink the poison. You know she's fucking not going to. But something JP said about the game is that you go through this sort of like emotional journey and it, like, you know, barrages you slightly. It's just like, no, it fucking doesn't. It really doesn't. At no point do I feel emotional. All it is, it's her being a cock for 4 roots. And then one thing is said and suddenly she changes her mind about how life works. The game was okay. Right? I will just have to put that there. The game was okay. I played it, I was like, the art's very good. I don't know about the music. What was the music like?
The music wasn't anything really special. In fact, some of the tracks seemed kind of familiar to me. I have to go back and check to see if they're from a different game, because some of it was really familiar.
Alright, well, yeah, I don't know what the music's like. Normally, I'll give the first track a listen, and if it's not really something I'd conditionally listen to, I just stick my Spotify list on. And there were some very coincidental tracks which came on. When it started raining, this Swedish band called Bodies Without Organs, their song Sunshine in the Rain came on. I was just like, Christ, that's fitting. It doesn't always work, though. However, when the first person was going to be sacrificed, Tequila by TerraVision was on. So, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the game is... It's okay. I could tell very quickly, despite not knowing beforehand, that it was a NaNoRenO game. Which means it was made in a game jam throughout March last year. I didn't know this whilst playing in. Just when I seemed to be getting to the end, I had to look it up, because I was like, okay, well, this is blindingly obvious what's going on then. And it did seem... You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to explain, because it was all right. It just wasn't an amazing journey full of emotions and crying and reasons to be sad for. What did you think? Well, would you agree, or did you just not think it was good at all?
I didn't think it was very good. One question that I want to ask you, and I guess a thing for the viewers as well if they want to consider, was, were the alternate paths in this game really necessary? Or could it have just been one long story that could have been done a little bit better if they sacrificed those alternate paths, which, in my opinion, didn't really do much overall?
I'm never a big fan of different paths doing different things. Anyway, Area X was a wonderful example of this. Like, according to it, depending what boy you kissed, nothing would happen, maybe you found out something you shouldn't have, or maybe the fucking world would end. It's like, what? I did this exact same thing, and I was doing this thing beforehand, but now because I want to kiss this boy instead, suddenly I'm completely different and doing this completely different thing. But I never liked having to get certain endings to do different endings. Now, as I said, it was all right. I just don't think it was too short to get what they wanted to do properly.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
Yeah, probably the only way I can put it
too
through.
Much happens
you're supposed
too fast.
To go, yeah, you're supposed to go through this sort of like, barraging emotional journey, and I just didn't feel it. I really didn't. I didn't feel it was that good. I didn't see why people were raving about it. But then I speak to a fair few people in the visual novel community, and I spoke to I won't name them just for their sake, but I spoke to two different people, and they both said it was all right. It wasn't incredible. It was okay. It's very hard to sort of like put your finger on it, but I didn't think it was good as it was. Basically.
Yeah, I think we have the similar opinion on this, that it's really a game that seems like it could have been done well if there's more time taken on it. And maybe that's part of the whole NaNoRenO thing where it's, done in a month or whatever. And so I guess some parts of it just end up being a bit rushed and not as good as they could have been. For example, I really think that if you take out those alternate paths, you pretty much have everything you need to know about the game in the true path anyway. And that could have been worked on a little more. It could have been developed a bit so things just don't happen so suddenly and you can see the change in the character. It just doesn't happen like a switch. I don't know, that's what I would want.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you have to go back and look at it, look, you fall in love with someone within 3 sessions. One night, one morning, one day, and then you love them, and then they're your new bae, and nothing can ever go wrong. And then you learn sort of friendship in the true ending, and that's supposed to be the point, but you don't necessarily. It's yeah, that's all I can really say. It just was bleh. It really.
And the
wasn't.
last thing that I'm going to mention about the game was the stuff with the gods, or maybe it's just one god. I don't really quite remember. It was so silly. The ending.
It's one god because they named they gave it a name. So
yeah, there was some kind of name for it, which I don't want to try to pronounce again. But yeah, the god comes in at the end and saves the day, and then the whole time I'm just thinking like, it's kind of a case with a lot of religions. Like they have a story like this where someone's about to be sacrificed, and then at the last minute the god intervenes and saves the day. Like, oh no, don't kill your son. I was just joking with you about that. You don't have to do that. But yeah, so at the end you're saved. But the question I have is, why didn't the god do anything the other time the characters are being sacrificed? Because this god's kind of a dick.
Yeah, I think it's definitely sort of Old Testament Jehovah thing going on, isn't it? He's a penis throughout, really. Yeah, he seems to just not care about anyone unless, what was it called? Nishtik? I can't remember. What was her name?
The country? Nishtif?
Nectia. No, Nectia.
Oh, okay.
That was her name. He doesn't actually really seem to care what happens to anyone unless Nectia has some sort of emotional way to overcome everything. Which is, again, their god just saying, oh, well, fuck the poor people. We don't like him. This noble woman, however, she's the one who has to repent and learn the error of her ways. And
God hates poor people.
Yeah, God hates poor people. You heard it here first. If an apocalypse ever comes and God kills us all, don't say we didn't warn you, right? But yeah, is that all you want to say on Taaradhin?
I think that's about it, right? Unless you have anything.
No, I'd just say it's all right. But that's about it. It's certainly not English Visual Novel of the Year. It's all right. The art is very good. You have to applaud them on that. But
yeah, the art's good. I'll agree.
Yeah, it was all right. It wasn't amazing as VNsNow made it out, basically. But it's not the first time him and I have had a disagreement. We'll move on to the next game now. Now, when I picked this game, it's called You're Worth Your Weight in Wheat. I didn't realise it's from a game jam. So it was quite short. Very short, in fact. It was 3 days it took them to make this. And I must admit, I'm always very surprised. Apparently there were 5 people who made this. I was shocked. Because I didn't see how it could take 5 people 3 days to make this. Unless they just made it in 1 day and had 2 days of putting their feet up. But the description goes, a visual novel that explores the concept where the player is playing as a non-player character in the game world and despairs over the thought of being trapped in the eternal scripted loop of an NPC. There are multiple endings and choices of how someone may take action in this fantasy world. Now, you get a hero coming up to you in the end of the story, or an NPC who sells wheat, hence you're worth your weight in wheat. And as long as you kill No, hang on. No, they have to give you 10 bales of wheat.
And you give them a quest.
Bunches, whatever, yeah. And you tell them information about this monster. And then you come sort of aware for a bit.
For no reason, really.
And, yeah, no, for no reason. And realise you've never actually done anything else. And your life has always been this. And it sort of just goes on for a bit, and then you try saying something which you're not supposed to say, which isn't, can I have 10 bunches of wheat, and you can't say anything. But then the hero adds you to his party. This is presumably in an MMO, a Mamorpaga. And you tell him, oh, I didn't want to do any of this, and then you can, go off adventuring and think about other people, or not think about other people. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. It explores the concept of being an NPC in a game by going, oh, I've become self-aware. Right, I'm going to do something. Or, I'll just stick to it and keep doing the same thing. That's it. Again, it was sort of one joke they thought of and then didn't think of anything else. They went, right, anyway, we got a game. Rub my hands, that'll do.
Yeah, it really seems like they had this one concept that they came up with, but then they didn't know anything to do with it. That's what I got from this game.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a running theme, you'll see, as well, with the next game we're going to be talking about. But
oh, yeah.
It was this game was 5 minutes long, if you read it quick enough.
Yeah, I think this might have been the shortest one of the bunch.
But it wasn't very good, basically. It's what you'd... Out of a game jam, you expect to see 1 or 2 absolute gems. And considering what other people can do in 24 hours, they can just program a completely new game, it was somewhat underwhelming. I think safe to say. And it took 5 people to make it as well.
Yeah, that's... For this game, that seems like there should have been a bit more done with this, for sure.
Yes, exactly. Do you want to go on to our next lovely game?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about that, so let's go on. So, the next game that we ended up playing was... And this was another Game Jam one, right?
I didn't realise when I chose it. I realised afterwards.
Yeah. So, it's called Star Coffee. And the description for this game is a game of language and choices. You are a new intern on a diplomatic space cruiser, and your new boss wants you to go get him some coffee. Too bad your translator doesn't English good, which is a pun, obviously.
You see what they did there.
Yeah, I know. I see what they did there. So, okay, Star Coffee, it's pretty much what it says, and not much more. You're some kind of an intern on a starship, and the captain tells you to get him coffee, and he provides you with a translator, who is very unhelpful. And basically, he mistranslates everything. But it has a bit of hint of truth to it. It's just very off. So from there, a bunch of mistranslating hijinks incur, and I think there's some event where you have to grab someone's butt, and that's the kind of humor you're going to get in this game, basically.
It's 5 minutes long, and quite literally one joke.
Mm-hmm.
At least in your worth, you're waiting. Wait, they stopped it. In this game, nope. It keeps going. It keeps going. And then eventually you get the coffee back to the programmer and he goes, anyway, now I want a donut.
Yeah. It's very comical.
Yeah, it's not brilliant. It's the only way of putting it. It could have been a lot better.
Also, I'm not sure if you noticed, Chris, but they had a mechanic in the game which they didn't fully implement. At one point, after you get the coffee, there's like an actual meter which shows, I guess, the coffee's hotness, and it dwindles down. But if it does run out, it doesn't do anything, so I don't think it even matters.
God, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I only noticed it the second time I played through, because I was like, what the hell happened in this game? I don't remember. I'm like, what's this meter? What happens if it runs out? Well, nothing.
Yeah, you get, I think, 3 2-minute conversations with everyone, right? And it's as silly as you'd imagine. I was more shocked when I looked at this game, and 7 people worked on it. 7 people in 3 days? Like, before anyone goes, oh, but Tenarium and Patrick have you don't know how hard it is to do this. I fucking do. I've tried creating a game as quickly as possible. And for a skilled bunch of people, they should be able to do better than what one guy can do in 24 hours. This wasn't an example of that. Oh. It just wasn't any good at all. It really wasn't. It's not funny. I mean, considering it's a comedy game, anyway. Yeah, considering it's a comedy game, you'd think that's one of the first thing it strives to be, but apparently not.
Yeah, it's basically a bunch of jokes because of mistranslations. Like, there's one time when I think someone asked you to get the blue bottle, but like there's a word he says before blue, and it ends up being, oh, it actually means red. Haha, that's really funny.
Yeah, and
that's the humor.
The standard of humor in that. So let's go on to our next game. This on VNDB has 3 votes, which are 8 rating. Now, hang on. I'm just going to click on them quickly. You gave Dysfunctional Systems a 7. Yeah, you have no taste. Yeah, no, there's this person, and this person doesn't either. So, I've no idea how this game got an 8. So, this is made in Unity. And I must admit, I was shocked. Because the art, to begin with, looked fucking good.
Yep.
It really did. It's 3D. Because it's Unity. You start in the middle of this snowy forest. And there are trees around you, and then suddenly you get pulled back through a window, and then you're in a warm house. I was like, oh my god, this is actually 3D. This isn't the illusion of 3D, or 2.5D. Nothing like that. This is actual 3D. God, I wonder where they can go to this. I naively thought. So, nothing is explained until the end, and even then it's fucking stupid. You are a bloke waiting in a house, and a girl is coming to see you. God, I skipped through this game quickly. It was painful. First of all, space doesn't work to skip text. You have to click. Drove me up the wall. And I muted the sound immediately. It was, painful. But you're a bloke in a house waiting for a girl to come. The girl comes, she hugs you, you fall down to the ground, and then she asks, why did you do that? And you sit there and go, oh, well, you know what it's like. And it turns out a year ago, after her family had died, you left her a note on the pillow. You're not even dating. You're best friends. You left a note on the pillow and fucked off somewhere. Where? Never explained. Never explained. Fuck knows. You just got on a train and left somewhere. And then, now you're back in the town. She's heard and she came running all the way here in her dressing gown. Now, first thing, I have to say, the art, the 3D art is so good. And then suddenly, they produce this fucking 2D bland thing.
Yeah, suddenly a 2D sprite pops out of nowhere in front of your view. And it's quite the clash.
Yeah, exactly. It's so clashing as well, because the art style is absolutely nothing like the surrounding background. you got a bookcase to your left, and then you got the window there, and then suddenly you've just got this rather shady 2D sprite up in front of you. God. So you go on speaking, and in her time, she decided to forget everything else and just focus on thinking about you. She ignored people at school. Yes, school. She is that young. Once her parents died, she went to live with her uncle. Her uncle abused her. And considering Now, again, apparently this is a real thing, so trigger warning and all. I am about to mock this. The character, just before coming to the house, gets their hair pulled, thrown against the wall, and then kicked. You then run out of the house. That's what I say you. This person then runs out of the house barefoot, God knows how many miles over snow. You'd think frostbite was a thing. Turns up at your house, completely fine. There are no bruises, there's no scars, there's no scratches, there's nothing. It's like, wow, that is incredible. You're either lying or the artist was a lazy fucker. Turns out the artist's a lazy fucker. And then it goes on, and it turns out that whilst he did that, a cigarette dropped out of his mouth or something and started burning the whole house. The uncle was lying there on the floor, and she ran away with the key, locked him in, and then came running for you. Essentially to let him die. The mood's all over the place at this point. It's silly. And then after it turning out that you're not the same person you were a year ago, blah de blah de blah, it ends, she falls asleep on your shoulder, and then it cuts to a scene of her lying down sleeping in the snow. Now, what I took from that is that she dreamt it all. I think that's what you did as well, didn't you, Patrick?
Basically, it's like one of those, this person's dying and they have one last dying vision type of thing where she hallucinated this warm cabin and her best friend being there again, and that's basically what it was, the whole story.
Yep. I was fucking disappointed.
To say the least.
Yep. Patrick recommended me this game. I speedrunned it about 2 hours ago. I am still bitter that I had to play it.
Let me just tell all you folks, I do not recommend games like this. I suggested Chris play this only because of how terrible that art clash was. I would not recommend this game to anyone.
No, didn't say that at the time, hasten to add.
When I told you,
hey Chris, do you want to play this game? Yeah, 2 weeks, schmeeks. But, oh god, it's just... Yeah, it turns out that she's dying. All of that's probably happened. Just none of it was there, and that's supposed to be, it's such a strong moment, but you never get to do anything anyway, because they never do anything. Yeah, the characters.
The game's annoying because everything that happens before that little plot twist, it's basically just, 10, 15 minutes of exposition about, what they did before, what happened in her life, this and that. And they're just like, okay, is this going to go anywhere? And then at the end, it's just some stupid, she's just dying and having a hallucination type thing. And it's like, oh, really?
Yeah, that is where they go with this game. That's it. Like, there is actually physically nothing more you can say about it. That's the worst thing. It's so bad. It really is. I would rather play Analog a Hate Story than go through that again. Analog a Hate Story was a really shit game. I don't know how I sat through it. It's probably the Unity art. It's a shame, because whoever the artist is really good.
That's something I almost wonder if it was really like an artist they hired, if this was some kind of other assets they used. I'm kind of curious about that. I'll have to look into that at some point.
Yeah, they probably used default Unity assets, let's be honest. But it was at least nicely done. Do you want to just move on to the next game before I
okay.
Through my computer and break my knuckles?
So the last game we're doing, no, this isn't the last. I think we actually have one more after this, unfortunately, which you're going to have a ball with.
Now I've got to do the introducing to that one as well. Hey!
All right, so this next game is actually something Chris is playing right now on his channel, interestingly enough. So, Aloners.
That's youtube.com/ChrisTenarium for those wondering.
Yeah, there you go. Which we'll have a link or something, which I'm sure you'll find. So the Dust Bowl is, once again, this is a loner's, and the description on VNDB is, the Dust Bowl, ground zero for the event that wiped civilization from the face of the earth. Plagued by toxic gas clouds and once human monsters, only one man survives to call this wasteland his home. Trash takes his name from his lifeblood, scavenging and restoring what he can from the rubble, in order to live another day. He lives alone in his self-made shack, surrounded by the machinery he loves and hidden from the world that wants him dead. Until the day he finds you, a young woman somehow untouched from the harsh reality of the Dust Bowl. As he teaches you how to take care of yourself in this new and arid, brutal world, you might just end up teaching him something in return. So, it's quite the introduction for the game. Now, the first time I read that, I thought it was going to be about this guy Trash, but it's actually about this, I think it's initially unnamed and we never really get to see what she looks like, this girl. So it's a post-apocalyptic setting, as you can guess. Almost a bit like Fallout, if you ever played any of those games. There's like these kind of mutant things that you're going to run across every now and then. Should I mention all the spoilers for Chris, by the way? I should probably have asked before this, because you're still playing it, aren't you?
I am still playing it. The story hasn't quite won me over yet. I'm told it's very good, but after half an hour in, the story is going to be very hard to win me over, so it could still be very good. The background art is horrific. It's a Photoshop filter of real photos, and it honestly looks like the main bit, right? It looks like the Grand Canyon. Someone's put a Photoshop filter of it and gone, how can I make it look like a camel shat over all of this?
That sums it up rather well.
I know, I'll just make it all a light brown. But yeah, I'd say by all means, go for it.
Alright, so the full description, full spoilers and everything. So, yeah, you're some girl who has memories of stuff that happened before, like, the fall of man, before all the apocalyptic whatever happened that you're not sure of at first. And I don't think it ever does get fully explained. So you find yourself somehow in this type of shelter, which ends up being Trash's shelter. And immediately you have a gun put to your face. And you're pretty sure he's going to kill you, so you have a choice. And the first thing I'll mention about this is that the choices in this game don't really matter at all. If you play this game already, Chris, and you've experimented with the choices, you'll probably seen that already. Pretty much whatever you do ends up with the same thing happening. It's just kind of the illusion of choice, kind of like some of those, I guess, Telltale games, which are kind of similar to this. So, really, you don't have a lot of power to decide what happens. You either get a choice to, I think, run away, you can fight back, or you can try talking to him. If you try talking to him, you can't talk. If you try fighting back, you knock him over and then run away. And if you run away, you just run away. So either way, you're going to run away, pretty much. So that happens. He finds you, and then you have another choice, which I think is to give him the finger, or I think he commands you, he says, raise 3 of your fingers in the air. And you either give him the finger or give him 3 fingers. And once again, whatever you choose, the dialogue is the same. The same thing happens. He realizes that you're actually human and you're not a mutant. And he spares your life. He decides that, alright, you can live with me because there's no one else in the world left. Just us two. Babe, as he likes to say.
Babe. That's the thing where growing up in the south of England, you have to put up with people from, like, Essex calling everyone, alright, darling, alright, bird, how you doing? So, that character annoyed me instantly.
Yeah, same here. So, the rest of the game I could pretty much just sum up by saying, you do survival stuff together, you develop a relationship with him, and eventually the plot takes place and you have to go on a journey to find the source of a radio signal and what awaits there. I could get into the details, but it's not really that important. But basically the whole game is about your relationship to this guy. And eventually in the end, stuff does happen, which, again, it's basically stuff which I don't need to mention, but it does provide some kind of conflict in the end, and you have to decide whether or not you trust Trash or whether you trust the other people, basically, without trying to get too spoilery. And that's the game. I don't think there's really much else I need to say about it to sum it up. So, Chris, do you want to give your impressions of the game so far from only playing a bit of it?
It's, unsure about the story, and the art's terrible. Although, the more you talk about it, the more I now want to know, because I know nothing at the moment.
Yeah, I will say that I actually did come to like the development between the two characters better as the game goes on, because it does feel like you are two people just living out all alone and you have to rely on each other. And then you get choices, but I feel like the choices for me at least were obvious. Like, even if you don't like the guy, you want to at least work with him to accomplish something. Otherwise, what are you going to do?
Yeah, quite. Yeah. I'm unsure about it, personally. I don't want to judge it too closely, but I am hoping the story's going to come up, because it has too good reviews for there not to be a good story.
Mm-hmm. I will say there's going to be a bit of a twist to the end, which I'm not sure how you're going to react to, so I'd like to get your opinions on it afterwards. I don't know, maybe we'll do like a follow-up video after this is over to just complete our review of Aloners. But yeah, there's a bit of a twist which you might get annoyed with, to be honest. We'll see how it goes.
Oh god. Is it stupid?
It at least takes into context like the rest of the stuff that's happened throughout the game. But, I just played it myself yesterday, so I'm not really sure how to feel about it completely. I'm kind of meh on it.
Oh god. Alright, I'm just going to go to the next game. That seems much easier. One which hasn't been
Before
reviewed.
we get into that, I just want to criticize a few more things about the game before we move on, without getting to the story. Basically, the first thing I want to say about this game was that the choices didn't matter much throughout most of the game, and I think even in the end, they didn't really matter. And another problem, which doesn't really spoil anything, but more characters show up later, and either the characters aren't shown, or they're done in silhouette. Which, as you can tell, is...
That's normally just laziness.
It's just laziness, and, it's a big problem for me, because there were only 2 other main characters for the game. So why couldn't they just have 2 more? I don't know. But, okay, enough about that.
To be fair, I think their art was working on a budget. Jesus Christ.
I don't know how you got that impression, Chris.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm having ruthless, evil digs at them now for no good reason. What a horrible person I am. Well, yeah, let's move on to a game which hasn't been reviewed as well. It's Without Within by Invert Mouse. Vinti has been getting nowhere with her calligraphy. Her confidence has sunk to an all-time low, as life pressures her toward giving up. Will she forget why she pursued this craft in the first place? Now, I mean, this is one of these... It's your channel, fuck it, I won't get in trouble for saying it. It's a kind of game I like to call a Japanese bukkake. Everyone sits around, they see Japan, and they're like, oh my god, this is amazing. It's Japan! And that's what this game is. Ugh. You get like 5 choices towards the end, and the choices matter in a way that if you pick the obviously bad one, you get the bad end, and then the good end is another bad end. So, as said, you are Vinti, aren't you? Yeah, you dream of being a famous calligrapher. I thought calligrapher was someone who studied writing and could tell when, let's say, like a suicide note or something like that. Trigger warning, sorry. Suicide note. And they could tell that it's been written by them. Apparently, a calligrapher is just someone who writes very neatly.
Yeah, it's kind of like this decorative handwriting, which I guess is popular in Japan.
Yeah, over my head. I'm not sure I can appreciate that. So first of all, your landlady comes over, and you're like, "Oh well, I have to see whether I can get her up or not." So the landlady knocks on, and if you decide to roll over, you get kicked out, and it's a bad end. If you don't, you give her the money the day after or something. You then get approached by someone in the street, because that's where you sell your calligraphy. And he says your calligraphy is really bad. You can either just get on with it, or have a smack at him. And if you have a smack at him, it goes to a bad end. And then you see a child, and something happens with that. You have to help him take his mum. And you buy him an ice cream with the little money you have. And if you don't do that, then the boy goes missing for even longer or something. Something goes wrong with the boy. Bad end. You don't get to work. You're late. Everyone shouts at you. You then, on the way back, go to buy a game. God, I mean, even the description is laboured. You can tell how much I enjoyed it. You go to buy a game. I can't remember what it's called. But you don't have enough money for that, so you eventually choose a budget version, which isn't as good, but you play it and make the best of it, and suddenly everything's hunky-dory and wonderful. And then you go to work the next morning, the end's coming, and the same guy who took the piss out of your work comes up. This is the good ending, the true ending. Just bear that in mind. You get up, and from what I can tell, there's a quick fucking chibi art. I hate chibi art. Where you go and kick him. And everyone laughs at you for being crazy. So.
And you end up on YouTube. Don't forget that part.
Yeah. You end up on YouTube. So, normally, games, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Some can be more drawn out than others. Even the film MASH. Have you ever seen the film MASH?
No, I have not.
You should, everyone listening, you should. It's fantastic. But even that, it's like a load of random things sewn together. But even in that, at least there was a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's like about a load of doctors during the American War in Vietnam.
You're talking about the TV show?
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I haven't seen that. I thought, okay.
Yeah, it's like the TV show, but it's a film.
I didn't know there's a film.
You know, yeah, it's a film. It's really good. I saw that before I saw the series, actually. And it's them sort of like, just dicking around for a bit, but they arrive and they get to learn, and then you've got all the middle bits where they're getting more accustomed, and then at the end, they all have to leave, and they're shocked. That still has a beginning, middle, and end, even if it is completely disjointed, right? This doesn't. It doesn't have... It has a vague beginning, then it has a middle. And that's about it, really. It kind of just stops there. It doesn't bother with the whole end bit or middle bit. It's just someone who's created a character, which is supposed to be kind of cute, and I imagine a load of, oh, cute, kind of Japanese wank around the end of it. And that was it. Like, that was genuinely it. Someone, all that I just explained, that's it. Just, I kind of shrugged my shoulders after it and went, huh? Really? I mean, how much did you hate it, Patrick?
I hated it pretty much in its entirety. I remembered even less about it than you did. I forgot about that whole stuff with her buying a game because it didn't seem to have anything to do with anything as well.
Yeah, you learn like a gem or something, and then I think you give up on your dream if it doesn't work or something. Just bleh.
Do you think this game's actually a whole metaphor for someone making a piece of art which doesn't really do well, and then she gets criticism and, trolls online and that kind of thing?
Nope. I think it's shit. I think... I think someone had an idea and didn't bother expanding upon it too much. I think they genuinely thought it was funny.
And that's probably the saddest part of all.
Yeah. No, I think the saddest part of all is that someone watched it and thought it was funny.
Yeah, that is pretty sad.
Someone. But it doesn't have a single... I don't do numeric rating on my channel because I always think they're wank. And I never read them out. But this game has no 10 or 9 rating at all. And it has 51 votes. No one played this and went, wow, this is incredible. It's just... One of the tags for this game on VNDB is sunflowers. And that's because occasionally they appear in the background. That's how interesting this game was. Someone thought that was one of the major talking points about the game.
Well, I don't know. It did get a couple of 7s and 6s there, so someone thought it was decent, which I don't see.
Because lots of people like Japan. Basically. A lot of people like Japan. I don't mind stuff being Japanese, but it's when you have your whole game based around this stereotype Japan thing, and it does nothing. It just adds nothing. Only add things which do something.
And this game did nothing.
This is why... Yeah, when I was criticising Sakura's Spirit last year, people went, oh, you're just afraid of sex. No, you can add sex into the game all you want. That's fine. Having sex in a game, it's fine. It shows sort of like an emotional peak between two different people. They're suddenly comfortable enough with each other to share these feelings, to share these images of themselves to one another.
Yeah, it definitely works in certain stories, but you need to justify it.
Yeah! Sakura Spirit is just a load of people taking their clothes off. And Without Within is just Japan for the sake of having Japan. There's nothing else to it. There really isn't. What? Did you hate it as much as I did?
Yeah, I hated it probably more. I just played a bit of it. I really didn't remember anything about this game, so I'm really glad that you're the one that covered it.
Yeah, no, I played.
I just remember the ending where
still sits in the memory.
Yeah, I just remember the ending where she ends up on YouTube. I'm like, oh, well, that's the ending. All right, she's a viral hit on YouTube. I guess that's success these days.
Yep, and their next game is apparently their longest yet, so they'll have to write a game which is over 20 minutes long. Whoa. Just... I can't think of a better note to sort of wrap it up on, can you?
Not really. I'm trying to search for anything. So what was the theme of this week, would you say? I mean, last week we just had some bad games in general, but this week I think it was a lot of ideas that were really just half-baked.
It shows you need a bit more than just one idea to make a good game. Father Ted have this wonderful sketch where Dougal, the stupid priest, says something to Father Ted, and Father Ted goes, "Oh, that's a wonderful idea, and what should we do again, like, around that?" And Dougal goes, "I didn't know I had to have loads of different little small ideas to go with my big idea." And he goes, "Well, yes, of course you do." I can't do Irish accent, in case you hadn't noticed. But the point was, and then Dougal just goes, well, I want out then. I don't want anything to do with this. If I had to do all these little small ideas as well, that's what it was. Basically, the games this week were that sketch.
I would agree, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, someone not wanting anything to do with the game unless, they could just make one idea. It was... But next time, on Tenarium Tryinmorning Talk VNs, we have a NaNoRenO special. That's right, we're going to play every visual novel that our sanity will hold and do it. But I've already looked through some of the games on the NaNoRenO list, and some of them honestly look really good.
Well, that's good news.
Some of them look... Yeah, exactly. Some of them look promising. I didn't want to punch myself. However, it is visual novels, it is NaNoRenO, so I imagine 60% of them won't be finished. So,
and it'll probably be the best ones.
Yeah. Yeah. The end pool is going to be a lot shorter than it currently is. Like, even that Autumn's Journey game I was talking about beforehand, that was originally a NaNoRenO game, and then it came out, fucking months later. Some people just delay because they find, oh, actually, this is a good idea. I want to do more with this.
And you know what? I think that's totally fine.
It is completely fine. But it just means that there won't be as many games as people suspect, but there will be a fair amount of games. Also, we might have a special guest on the show next time. Can't say who, because they might not be available. But we might have a special guest, and that's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, we got something up ahead to look forward to, and hopefully we'll be able to get through all the VNs that we have to try for NaNoRenO. Because, well, I think we are going to need a helping hand at least to cover all those.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping for a few gems in there. I really want to get through there and just find a really good game. Just something I can, a diamond in the rough, just pick and go, you know what, that was incredible, and I want to look at this person's work more in the future.
Indeed. It'd be nice to show off.
Yes, quite. Anyway, my internet is slowly dying away. Do you want to sign off, Patrick?
All right, so since Chris's internet is dying, what I'll do is quickly wrap things up. So we covered, it was about 6 VNs this week, and next week we're going to be covering a whole bunch for NaNoRenO, so be sure to catch that. Be sure to also subscribe to Chris's channel if you haven't already, because the next part will be on his channel, and that's ChrisTenarium. You could search it on YouTube, or you could probably just click the annotation that I'll have available in the video. That's about all for me. Chris, any final words?
Yeah, let's hope that NaNoRenO is a really good one this year. Last year it was good. We're hoping for something really good this year.
Okay, and I'll second that, and I hope all of you are crossing your fingers as well, because if not, it's going to be a really tough episode to go through then.
It's just going to be like every time I get tagged in something, my answers to the questions are just very blunt. It's just like, have you ever had this? No. Have you ever had this? No. Have you ever had this? No. It's going to be going through loads of visual novels and going, yeah, so anyway, this was a shit. This one was okay. Shit. I'm hoping it's not going to be that.
Hopefully not. If it's just a checklist of things, then we might just upload a document which will tell you which ones are shit and which ones are not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the checklist before the episode starts.
So that's about that, and I'd like to thank you all for watching. Once again, the next part will be on Chris's channel. I'll probably include an annotation to get to it, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you then.